Okay, I'm a little bit annoyed with the silly news of silly politicians and silly, powerful people, and even people that are activists for the wrong things. There's only one thing to be an activist for right now that you are capable of as a species, and it'll unite you. So when an activist for the climate emergency interrupts Biden, and his speech was not bad, and he's talking about real issues that he's working on and that are being faced by most people in the United States. But the thing is that, you know, the only way to unite people is not the tribe versus tribe topics that Biden is talking about. It's the climate emergency. Now, I don't think your species is yet able to conceptualize the concept of the Anthropocene, which is about the failings of your species up here. So I'm okay with climate emergency as your top priority to unite your species in any form of democratic movements or activism or protests that make sense and that do not requiring funding more war, but actually requires funding more science and collaborative projects among all peoples of the world, because this is the common threat of the day. Again, the common threat of the day is the flaws of your species up here. But as the specialist of that, I know you're not there yet. So you could be at the climate emergency stage, which again, it's too late to solve, but not too late to mitigate if you care about all the things you claim to care about. When it comes to the apology in the Canadian government, the Speaker of the House's apology was very good. It is not uncommon in most so-called developed countries of the world to have these kinds of errors happen. It's very nice that he resigned, and I don't think he should specifically resign in other roles than that one. And it allows Canada to maybe decide on venting and updating what venting looks like, which is not just about somebody being a threat in the now, but also about, the psychohistory of a person, the psychological profile and the background, because and you don't have to do it with somebody that is not there to be honored, for example, but somebody at that level that was seen around the world. Now, again, what Pierre Poilievre is doing is extremely toxic. Pierre Poilievre demonstrates no skill sets at all related to how challenging it would have been if he was in the role of Trudeau, if something like that would have happened. And of course, he will be faced, if he wins, with even more challenges than Trudeau, except he's role modeling no skill sets to be in such a role. He's only role modeling toxicity, bully, classroom clown behaviors. And again, these are patterns that are very easy to notice. So that means we can say that the Conservative Party as a whole is toxic, because I don't hear in the news that people are leaving the Conservative Party of Canada. So if they find Pierre Poilievre's behaviors acceptable, or other Canadians do, then Canadian society is very toxic. And that is a bigger issue than the error that was made. It's interesting in the speech of the Speaker of the House honoring this person, saying, and by the way, if you study that person's life, you might find that they had regrets and things like that. We didn't hear from that person. Now, if that person was fighting what was back then the Soviet Union, not Russia, and the way it was talked about, we know that, as a whole, MPs, don't know much about World War II and what really happened. I mean, if they did, they might not even allow the Pope, a representative of the Vatican in Canada. He wouldn't pass. Being a representative of the Vatican wouldn't pass the vetting. If you really study the history of World War II, and not written by the so-called winners or allies. Okay, now when it comes to Trudeau, his apology was amazing. in the sense that it included an embarrassment to all Canadians for this, but it reflects the ignorance, hypocrisy, but mostly the intellectual laziness and redneckism that is growing in Canadian citizenry. So that means, well, first of all, look how many people applauded, okay? And it's very possible that conservatives were applauding that person because they also had that ignorance. But they sell an image more, conservatives. So they're very mad now, almost like thinking they were fooled, but really it was their choice and again, how do you, when this happens, have the time to look up this person's history? And that's how they're mad. But this kind of thing happens all the time. I mean, people that want to vote for Poilievre, they haven't looked up his history. If they did, and they'd still want to vote for him, I'm sorry, the facts are there that his history shows he should really not be allowed in politics. And if you want to vote for somebody like that, then you will deserve things much worse than what happened, where a resignation was done anyways, and possibly somebody that didn't vet far enough in the history of that person, or that should have. These changes will come with this event. There was still a resignation, but it's not about resignation or apologies. It's about the improvement and repairing of culture. And Pierre Poilievre is not suggesting any solutions to repairing culture because he's a culture breaker.